Ichimon Japan is made possible by Patreon support. If you would like to make sure that we can keep bringing you more content like this, then head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon and sign up for as little as $1 a month. Yeah. I've seen more than a few Japanese people pick their noses, all right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And their ears and all kinds of holes. Like,
Yeah, they're good at hole manipulation.
Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony.
And I'm Ryan.
And, Ichimon means one question, and every episode we ask a question about Japan or the Japanese language or what?
Or many questions.
Well, yeah. Usually it starts with like one thing, and then we'll end up asking a bunch of stuff. But anyway, which actually today is kind of in that category in a way. So I'll get to the point. Today's question is,
what is happiness?
Okay, so happiness is this feeling that you get inside when you listen to Ichimon Japan.
Exactly. Self-promotion inside the episode. Kind of self-defeating, but
yeah, exactly. It's like, no. Promotion is to get more people to listen. Okay. So today's question is, are Japanese really blah, blah, blah? So today we're just going to be talking about kind of stereotypes that people often bring up or have about Japan and Japanese people. So it's, a bunch of different topics all rolled into one.
I got to say, I knew the topic for a while, but I didn't know that was how you were going to phrase it for our recording. And good job. I was expecting it would be like, are Japanese stereotypes true or something? But no, just are they blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, parentheses. Whatever Japanese stereotype, some numbers like that.
So you insert blah blah blah. It's being used as a variable.
No. I'll just put in like ... question mark because SEO. Got to think about the SEO. So anyway, so I came across an article in Live Japan or Live Japan. I don't know if anybody knows how it's pronounced, but
I imagine it's intentionally ambiguous. But
I think so too. But
we find out it's like Live.
Live Japan. It's 15 stereotypes about Japan. Actually, I was thinking about doing something else, but then this article kind of covered it pretty well. So I thought, all right, we'll just use this as a jumping off point. So I don't think we're going to cover all 15, but if we do, we do. If we don't, whatever. So
hey, we might cover 30.
Yeah. So we're just going to go through a bunch of these and offer our thoughts and give a little bit of maybe context, and maybe if we have any experience with anything related, we'll share that. So Ryan, you want to throw one at us?
Okay, I guess we can start with number one. I guess I'll phrase it the way you have. Are Japanese people shy or quiet?
Oh, okay. Good job. So, all right, Ryan, how about what do you think?
I mean, shy and quiet people exist.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the same thing as the article concludes, that I don't think the rate of shy or quiet is really any higher than anywhere else.
Yeah.
I think similar, I think the article says this too, is if you're a foreigner coming to Japan, you might overestimate the shyness because people are either dealing with you in English, which is a language they're not confident in.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could be speaking Japanese, then it might be different. But assuming you're speaking English, they're kind of at a disadvantage, which causes them to act a little bit more shy and quiet. But if you see Japanese like in their own contexts, not really.
Yeah. What I would add is also like there's very much an awareness of TPO, right? There's a certain way you should behave and speak in certain occasions, right? That comes down exactly like to the language. It's encoded in the language in a very explicit way. And so like it's not that, for example, you see the convenience store clerk being shy. It's that they have to behave a certain way. Whereas when you go to a convenience store in the US, they don't really have to behave a certain way so much. Like,
I do think it's also a little bit regional because here where I live now, they've been much more like by the book Keigo people.
Yeah.
But when I lived in Kansai, they absolutely occasionally did try to small talk with me.
I agree.
Yeah.
there is a little bit of a variation there, and it also can depend on like how, like if it's a chain store versus kind of a local shop or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for example, it's like you go to like a Walmart in the US and it's like, excuse me, where's the shaving cream? And like, over there, it's like, so it's like that. I mean, that's more of a customer service kind of thing, but it also comes down to the fact that I think generally, there's certain expectations that are more abided by in a lot of context in Japan, and so that can give off the impression that a person is maybe shy or extremely reserved, when really they're just kind of following the way that they're supposed to be in a certain situation.
I guess I can say maybe it's like a little funny anecdote. I
Mhm.
wasn't aware of this until recently, but apparently my girlfriend is fairly shy.
Oh, uh-huh.
She didn't seem that way when we first started dating, but I've
Yeah,
noticed now she hates talking on the phone, which I think is a thing like all millennials have.
yeah, yeah,
But even though she is a native Japanese speaker, she makes me order pizzas for us because she doesn't want to talk to them on the phone.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, yeah, that also does happen in the West. So, I mean, some people just don't like talking on the phone, right? It's like a
Yeah, I wish I
generational
could do it
thing.
online. We only have a little local shop that doesn't have like an internet site for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a lot of one term that I get that I hear kind of often when people talk about this sort of thing in Japanese is hitomishiri,
Mm.
which basically is something like shy or just kind of like bad around people, or just depending on how you translate it, but roughly speaking, something like that. And I've gotten the impression that some people say that even though they're actually quite like sociable and not necessarily shy by what we would understand as shy. They're good at talking to people and stuff. So, I mean, I think it really depends on the context and the person, but sometimes people just kind of say they're shy even though they're not necessarily all that shy compared to somebody that is really, really, really shy.
Sometimes you just don't want to talk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Some people are more introverted, some people are more extroverted. But yeah, like you said, I think like if you were to do some massive, huge study, I would be extremely surprised if we found that 90% of Japanese people were like shy, and like 20% people of Westerners, were not shy or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Tony, are you shy?
Um, I wouldn't say I'm shy. I would say that I tend to be reserved in situations where I have no need to talk. Uh,
Mm.
but I obviously I produce these podcasts and all that. So when the time is right and it's okay for me to talk, I'll talk my butt off. But um generally I don't like to like all of a sudden just like cold call someone, or like talk to somebody on the street and like try to make friends, and I'm not particularly good at that, but if I have to, I guess I can do it.
I think I'm the same.
Yeah,
I've never just walked up to a stranger and been like, "Hey, let's talk now."
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I've
it's
generally
always
been very unhappy if someone's tried that with me.
yeah. Yeah, I always be like, what I don't know, maybe it's, but in this day and
And
age it's like you can't help but be kind of suspicious about anybody that would do that to you, right?
and to return to our topic, I have had Japanese people try to do that with me.
Yeah, and I feel very awkward in maybe not all of those situations, but when that's happened to me, it's always like, okay, what do you want? What do you want?
Sometimes I think they just want to practice English if they approach in
Yeah,
English, but sometimes they just approach in Japanese, and I guess they just want to chat.
I guess so. Yeah, 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 yeah. I've had awkward situations like that. So I don't know. So yeah, I mean, there are Japanese people that are shy, but also I think it's a misinterpretation of some sort of social cues and stuff that's going on. So yeah. All right, let's do another one.
So the next one I think is obvious, but I guess some people may not know. Do Japanese people love sushi slash fish and eat it every day? The answer, of course, is yes.
Yes, yes, yes. It's like I went to McDonald's one time and I ordered a Big Mac, and right on top of it, just a big like salmon nigiri sushi was like
Yeah, you
right
have
on
to
top of it.
request them. They put it in the drink sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, oh please, no maguro, please. And they go, oh, but we're gonna have to serve you less Coke if we take the maguro out.
Not
Because
just like the portion that the maguro was filling, they actually give you even less.
yeah, they punish you. I think I talked. Yeah, I did. In the annoying things about Japan, I talked about the time that I tried to get an ice cream float or whatever in cream soda in McDonald's, and I asked for no ice, and they refused, or they refused to do it. I think they said they couldn't do it.
I didn't have exactly the same. This is off the topic of fish, but whatever. But I did
Yeah.
like at the very beginning once ask for a Coke with no ice, and they just gave me like a 2/3 full, 1/3 empty cup. I was like, oh, thanks.
Gotcha. Okay, we're being that stingy, huh? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's surprisingly stingy here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, going it's by the rule. Got to be by the rules, so by the book. Anyway, so obviously, no, not people don't eat sushi all the time. I think that, like Ryan said, that's pretty obvious.
I guess I will point out real quick. I have literally known one person who actually did eat sushi every day,
Oh, really?
but other Japanese people thought he was weird.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Yeah, he would come in with like a little sushi bento, like from Konbini, every single day.
Okay, okay, okay. It's kind of like I imagine it's almost like the kid that would always come in with like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or something like that.
Except he's like 40.
Yeah, except he's funny. He's just, I'm just gonna have the same bento every day. That's it. I'm not gonna
I
think
think
about
he
this.
did variety up the bento, like it wasn't always the same
Okay.
fish, but it was
Yeah.
sushi every day, and people would just
Uh,
kind of like joke about it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not common. So,
I do
there.
think the
Yeah,
majority of people do enjoy sushi,
yeah,
but I feel it's more like a once a week kind of thing.
yeah.
I guess it
At
depends on how
most.
fancy a place you go to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also depends on what exactly, like, the kind of sushi you're talking about, right? Like you might be talking about, like actual nigiri sushi, like the fish on top of the rice, or you're talking about rolls or something. Like maybe you're at the supermarket and you see that it's cheap, so like, okay, I'll just get this. It's not really like it runs the gamut, right, from super cheap to really expensive.
And I
Um,
have met multiple Japanese people who absolutely hate fish and never eat it no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, I've met people that really dislike, for example, like raw maguro, right? Like raw tuna. Can't eat it. Like they might eat other types of sushi or maybe rolls, but like maguro or certain types of raw fish, they just don't like it. So,
One of our
um
teachers, if you remember, actually at University of Hawaii, would not eat any raw fish, I believe.
oh, okay, okay, okay. All
I
right.
won't name drop in case privacy things, but
Yeah, gotcha.
and I did have a
Uh
teacher I worked with here who even cooked fish, he just will not touch it.
yeah, 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 exactly. So it definitely happens. I mean, I don't know if there is, for example, like if you grow up eating fish from a young age, then maybe you get it's not so strange. But as an adult, this is the first time you're exposed to raw fish, so maybe there's some sort of statistical difference in for that reason. But I don't know,
I don't know if it's true or not, but I was once told by a Japanese person, a friend,
Mhm.
that what you just said is true of octopus. Like if you grow up eating it as a kid, they don't see a problem with it, but if they start as an adult, they think it's like icky.
Well, I know a lot of Westerners like that don't live in Latin American countries, like Americans. But I think, okay, my experience is specifically with Americans. Yeah, they're like octopus, but like for example in Peru, that's not strange. Spain, that's not strange.
Well, I mean, even
Octopus.
in Japan, like
Yeah.
if some families didn't have octopus and they got older, they'd be like, "Oh, that's weird,"
Oh, interesting. Okay, I
because they
can't
were saying
remember
like they were
ever.
trying to expose their kids to it or something. I don't remember. This conversation happened like 10 years ago, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see how that could happen. When you really think about it, octopus does look pretty weird, right?
well, the
Just
more I
kind of,
think of it, I think it has very little to do with octopus and just any food they're not exposed to in the first 20 years of their life, they're
yeah,
probably going to be reluctant to eat.
yeah. I see. I'm willing to go with that theory, but whether I again, that does not extend into Japanese eating sushi every single day, right? So yeah,
Only every other
yeah, only every other day in their cokes.
day. That's the preferred way.
Yeah, yeah. It's
You
like
just put the wasabi in the show, you right in the Coke too.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes in coffee too. I mean, that's not everyone, but a lot of people. Yeah,
Yeah, like 90%.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Fish coffee, delicious. All right. So what's next?
This one, I guess, is something I've heard Americans believe. Is it true that all Japanese people love anime?
All right, go for it, Ryan.
No.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
I, I
here, yeah.
I did have a friend once who was not American, he was Canadian, who once before I came to Japan, he told me that he had heard it was weird to ask Japanese people if they like anime because
Mhm.
anime was so popular that they assume you mean something like weird if you ask specifically, like asking, "Do you use the internet or do you watch TV or something?" And no,
Yeah.
it is pretty much the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. All right. So here's something really important to point out: the fact that, I mean, anime in English means exclusively Japanese animation, whereas
Yeah.
anime in Japanese, in Japan, means like cartoons or anything animated in general,
Yeah, Toy
right?
Story is anime.
Exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. Pixar is anime, Bugs Bunny is anime, blah, blah,
Tony
blah,
is
blah, blah.
anime, if you
I'm
guys
anime.
didn't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I'm actually an anime character. So, um, so first we have that distinction that's really important to keep in mind. So, like, even if you, I mean, even in English, if you were to ask somebody, do you like cartoons? Like, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. It's a weird question to ask a lot of times, especially out of context.
Yeah.
Like somebody that you've just met. I don't know. Like, to me, depending on the person. But anyway, the point, the larger point here is the fact that, yeah, a lot of Japanese people don't keep up to date with the latest, I don't know, like hot shonen anime that's airing at 11 o'clock at night. So
Is that when they're
when
on? I never watched TV, so.
like, I mean, it just depends. Like the more mature stuff is usually on later at night. Um, so the thing here is that, it's really easy to get this skewed perspective of Japan. It's like, Japan is robots and cute girls, with the idols and blah 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 blah.
Those
You
true
know,
too, though. Japan is just full of robotic, cute girls. But they
yes,
don't
yes,
like
yes.
anime.
Beep boop boop beep boop 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 beep.
No, but honestly, I think something that surprises people if they come here is anime fandom skews younger.
Uh-huh.
Because I think shows that are big among college age people in the West are here aimed at like junior high to high school age kids.
Yep, 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 yep. Yeah,
And once they become adults, of course, some people still like follow it,
yeah.
but I think among like over 20 age people, I think anime is more popular in the West than it is in Japan.
Yes, I think it's more of a public thing, whereas in Japan, it's still there. There are still like hardcore
Yes.
fandoms. There's people that absolutely love like Attack on Titan, blah blah blah. Name
Yeah.
whatever popular anime, they love it. But it's almost like, it's more like secluded in a way, right? Like, not
Yes.
like you can ask a random person that's around, I don't know, in their 20s, whatever. It's like, you like anime? It's like, oh yeah, I've watched this, this, and this. Whereas in Japan, it's more like they've watched like the classics or the stuff that wouldn't even get aired here, like Sazae and
Yeah,
Doraemon,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
like the stuff that, is not popular here. They grew up with it, obviously, but do they keep up to date with like whatever the latest one? The average person, no. And if you try to strike up a conversation from that, a lot of times the conversation doesn't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
uh,
personal experience, I've seen lots of foreigners living in Japan who like have little like keychains and straps of like anime characters they like on their backpacks or whatever.
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen a Japanese person over high school age do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure
Again,
someone does, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
among
No,
the
people
foreigners I
do.
know, I think it's like a 60% rate, and among the Japanese people I know, I think it's like a 1% rate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, think about it this way, right? Because it's extremely skewed, right? Like the people that are
Yeah.
super passionate about that thing are going to end up in Japan, whereas in
Yeah, yeah,
Japan
yeah.
you have everybody, right? So, but if you go to like an anime shop, or obviously Akihabara or Ikebukuro, or what is it, Denden Town in Osaka,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get that skewed perspective where everything is like anime and stuff, and you're gonna get the hardcore people that are going there.
They
So,
definitely are there. I do think it's like you said, that is a little, I don't know if underground's the right word, but not
mhm.
openly advertised as much as in the West.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
And
rarely
honestly,
see them wearing like anime t-shirts or something like that.
yeah, yeah, that is so true. Yeah, that is much rarer to see like somebody with like an Evangelion T-shirt or something, unless they are specifically like at an event or
Yeah, yeah.
something kind of connected. Yeah.
And it's funny because I went to Nipponbashi not that long ago,
Mhm.
Denden Town, the other name for that place.
Yeah.
And there was one store that was like exclusively selling like anime themed t-shirts, and pretty much all the customers inside were foreigners.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like, in a way, maybe for many Japanese people, it might be a little too in your face, a little too braggy. It's like, I'm an Evangelion fan. Woo, look at me, right? It's almost like you're putting yourself out there a little too much, and so
Yeah.
you don't want people to like make that comment, unless you're like a super super hardcore fan. So I think maybe that's the difference. Whereas for a lot of Westerners, that becomes such an integral part of their identity that they are happy to like exclaim the fact that they are a fan of X show or X manga, right? And I mean, I'm not saying that either is right or wrong. I'm just saying like don't expect what is not reality, right? Like that's just the way that it is.
Related to this, but a little different, I'll point out that from my experience, Pokemon is largely the same. Where in the West, I think there's a lot of adults who are like nostalgic for it that still have merchandise or play Pokemon Go or whatever. But in Japan, it seems like it's exclusively kids.
Yeah, I think it skews a bit more that way. I think it skews a bit more in that sort of like what I said, like a little bit more like Doraemon or Sazae-san or Chini Maruko-chan or Crayon Shin-chan, where it's this kind of thing. It's become almost this thing that everybody grows up with. It's there. Everybody knows it. But then eventually many people do kind of gravitate away from it, and they're not wearing like Pikachu t-shirts and Pikachu backpacks by the time that they're in the working world, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, make of that what you will, but that's the impression that I think many people that spend time in Japan end up getting, because I think it's fairly accurate. I think what we've seen is reasonable. So
I will end on like, this doesn't mean you shouldn't be like hardcore fan of whatever you like.
Yeah. Just know who you got to talk to. Like pick, don't bring it up with every single person, basically, right?
Yeah, and I would also warn you, if you're someone who is coming to Japan hoping to find like the anime otaku wonderland or something.
Yeah.
It's not really here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Akihabara, I guess, but
I mean, I guess if you live and work exclusively in Akihabara, you can have that lifestyle.
Yeah, and most Japanese TV is super mundane, super boring.
It's like 90% cooking shows.
It's like either cooking or food or some kind of variety show with people in little screens in the bottom corner making
reacting to very, very mundane things as if it's the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah, like showing clips from stuff that aired in the West and like reacting to it. Roughly like interview kind of newsy shows. I mean, it's the same stuff again and again and again. So yes, anime does air on TV. You just got to know the time slots, certain days, certain times are when the anime airs. Aside from that, it's just, live action, normal, boring stuff. So yeah. But that is that. Let's do another one.
Okay. So our next one is, are all Japanese people good at math?
So Ryan, are they?
Well, I don't teach math, but no.
Exactly. Yeah, I've known people that are bad at math. I mean, I can't figure out a tip, for example, when they're in the US, it's like they know it's, whatever the percentage is, but there's like, no, I can't do it, but not just that, but also within Japan, it's like they're not good at it, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's people. Like some
in my classes too, like in language classes, it's very common to talk about like your favorite food, your favorite place, whatever. So I kind of like to reverse it and say like, what things do you not like, and what subject do you not like is one of the most popular ones. Mm-hmm. And I think math might be the number one most disliked subject among my students. English is number two, but
yeah. Well, anyway, so the article does point out something, and it's something that I also thought of when I first saw that little headline there. But soroban are
abacus.
Abacus, yeah, it's an abacus. Is it an
abacuses? Abaquai. Let's go with that.
Abaquai.
Abaquai.
Yeah,
it has a very irregular.
Yeah. Yes.
And once you go to three of them, it's a moose.
Abacus, abakai, moose. So an abacus, I think people probably know what it is. It's that little like it's that how do you
it's like a square with little pipes going across in the middle with little balls or cylinders that you move back and forth. You probably had like a similar toy thing when you were an infant.
Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking, sometimes you see those kids' toys that are like that. So there are like soroban, like after school like tutor schools, whatever. You can go there, when you're a kid growing up. Some parents make their kids go to these. I've known kids that, they would go to these soroban juku schools, and they learn, and there's like rankings, like in martial arts, you move up the ranks, and I don't know if you eventually like take on the master at the end, but
you have a soroban CI.
Yeah.
The final match, you're not even calculating math. You're actually attacking them with it.
I mean, some people get extremely good at this, and they're able to do like complex calculations in their head because they visualize the soroban, the abacus in their mind, and they can kind of mimic it with their hands, and it's there. And I'm sure that's a pretty cool skill to have, but that's only like a select amount of people. That's not everyone.
Yeah, in case it sounds strange to any of the listeners, though, if you can use it well, it is extremely fast, like much faster than using a calculator.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I've seen people on TV. It's like this person is amazing at this, and they like throw math problems or whatever at them, and they do it like on the spot. So there's that. I don't know if there's some massive study about like Japanese people versus other Westerners or something. But as far as my impression is that there's plenty of people that are not particularly good at it or don't even like math. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's probably a bit exaggerated at best, if not just not accurate. So we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with a few more. Hey, it's commercial time. So, if you haven't already, go check out the latest episode of Japan Station. In that one, I talked to Dr. Jonathan Wroot, and we're talking all about, well, Kitano Takeshi, his films, as well as Zatoichi, the blind swordsman, and a couple other things. So go check that out. It's super, super interesting. Hit that subscribe button too while you're at it, and hit the subscribe button for this one, for Ichimon Japan, if you haven't already. That is the #1 free thing you can do to support the show. And don't forget to leave a rating and a review. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you happen to do any shopping on Amazon, why not use JapanKyo.com/Amazon? That will send me a couple pennies, a tiny, tiny percentage of whatever you purchase. Won't cost you anything extra, and it supports the show. So again, JapanKyo.com/Amazon. All right, so let's get back to the show. All right, so we're back. We're going to do 4 or 5 more of these. I think one of these was not on the list. We thought of one original one, but we'll leave that one for the end. So what do we have, Ryan?
We have do Japanese people always work very hard?
Do Japanese people always work hard?
Yes, exactly that.
They are always work hard, unless they are working hard.
Yes.
Yes.
Obviously.
So, case closed. So, all right. So, generally speaking, let's just say, in terms of working hard, there's a few different ways you can define that, right? Are many Japanese people, especially office workers, at the office a lot? I would say many
probably
are. Yes, probably yes. There is a general impression that people spend long hours at the workplace. Again, we're mainly talking about white collar workers here, and that they spend a lot of overtime working.
So Tony is implying the blue collar workers don't work hard.
I'm talking about long hours in this specific context. So
you heard it here, guys. Tony, enemy to the blue collar.
Yeah. No, honestly, like that's the discord. I can't say much about blue collar because that's I just don't have that experience.
Yeah, actually, the stereotype within Japan is also office workers. I don't really know what it would be with blue collar.
Yeah. I mean, even when you get like Japanese media, like agretsuko, or like dramas that take place in an office, or all this stuff that might deal with this topic, it's always office stuff. Like that's the classic case. So we are going to be talking about that. So generally, yes, they generally do spend a lot more time. Teachers as well, crazy hours sometimes. Sometimes they even like sleep in the school. Like I've seen that happen, I think, or I've heard of cases like that. So yes, that does happen. Now, does that necessarily translate to them working at full efficiency 100% of the time, always having something to do?
No. I think the most famous thing is it's well known people just nap during meetings.
Yeah, or not even meetings, like just
whatever.
Yeah. Like I remember one teacher, he had stacked up like a bunch of towels behind him, and there was a cabinet behind him, so he just had his head back on the towels, and he was just sleeping in the office.
The teacher next to me now, he reads so much. He goes to like 2 novels a week.
Damn.
because they're always just sitting on his desk when he's teaching, so I can like see what they are, and I'm always like, holy crap, he goes through them so fast. I'll be honest, I don't see him reading them that much. I think we just have like opposite working hours, so he's reading when I'm teaching.
Yeah.
But apparently, he has the time to read them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Napping
And
is common. Talking with coworkers is common.
yeah, depends on the job, but yeah,
Yeah,
like I've
yeah.
seen teachers, definitely chat it up. They'll go over to like the office mail room or whatever it's called, and just chat up with the like office worker there. Um,
To
Now,
be fair, I don't think it's fair to make it sound like people are being lazy. I think they're doing the normal amount of work. They're just staying longer, like
yes,
doing 7 to 8 hours of work spread out over like a 10 to 11 hour shift.
yeah, I completely agree. But like for example, like again, because both of our experiences are in schools, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why we're talking mainly about that. But for example, like the homeroom teacher has to go visit the parents of every single student, and when this happens a few times in the year, and when this happens, like these poor teachers, sometimes they're on bikes, like riding around the neighborhood, or maybe they're in cars, but I've seen plenty on bikes just they spend like the whole evening just doing this for days, and it's an incredible amount of time and work and effort. That being said, sometimes they'll have like gaps of time where they don't have anything to do, and so that this is when you see these behaviors of like it's like maybe they could just go home, like no, but they have to wait until a specific time for whatever reason, maybe until the vice principal goes home before they go home or something, right? Like there's various little things that are sometimes unsaid that may cause them to stay longer than they really should.
That is also very true. That like just the timing. Like sometimes
Mhm.
you're very, very busy all day. Sometimes you have tons of free time.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
easiest
yeah.
one would be summer break. The teachers still go to the school for summer
Yep,
vacation,
there's like
and
nothing to do.
there's nothing to do there. Like the
Yeah,
first couple days, they do some like lesson prep or grading or whatever, and then they're just like online shopping, talking with the other teachers, or
yeah,
using. They do get personal days off. A lot of them will just like use their personal days off and not come in at all.
yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely, I've seen that happen. And then in the office too, of course. Like I've had close Japanese friends that have told me like, yeah, like I feel that I can't leave until like my direct superior leaves, right? So they have to just stay in the office until, well, they don't technically have to, but they do, until the superior decides to go home, right?
One of my
So
favorite friends I met in Japan was also a junior high school teacher who did not live by that philosophy at all.
mhm.
And she said she never got any seeming punishment or talking to at all for just leaving when her hours were over and basically following her contract as it was written
Yeah,
and never had any issues. So
yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
she
yeah.
got lucky or if that's normal, people just don't know about it, but I always use her as an example whenever people talk about this.
Yeah, yeah, I think that does happen. And for example, I have seen there's one specific teacher that I remember that he basically did exactly what he had to. He went home and he was a super nice guy. I really liked him. He
Hmm.
was one of the English teachers, but he didn't spend like a needless amount of time there. He just did what he had to do, go home. He wanted to spend time with his family, and that was that. And I don't know what the consequences of that were, but he was working, he was doing what he had to do, and he was doing everything he had to do, and he seemed to do it well. So
Yeah.
I don't
In
know.
in commercial businesses, the fear is not getting promoted, but in the
Yeah,
teaching offices, you're not really working towards promotions, so
and
I feel
oftentimes
like
promotions rather suck.
yeah, if there is a promotion system, you probably don't want it because it's like
Yeah,
no extra pay but extra work.
you don't want to be vice principal. That it seems like such a horrible job. It's like he's
Yeah,
the
I
guy or she's the guy that's always sitting there watching everyone and last one out, first one in. It seems like such a horrible position. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So again, I'm sure there's exceptions, but that's just what I've seen. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, there's grueling aspects to the Japanese work style. Again, white collar, but also there's plenty of examples that we've seen and heard about where people are just kind of killing time for whatever reason, social pressure, or because they think they have to do things a certain way, even though they don't really have to, or maybe there are actual consequences of like harassment, stuff like that. So
I
yeah,
think the most irritating one I personally experienced, I don't remember why, but I had to go to like a city hall for something. And there was like a long line and one person working at the window, and then like you can see them all in the background the way like they're because you know how they have like a counter in the front,
Mhm.
and like all their desks are visible behind it, at least in every city hall I've ever been to.
Yeah.
There was like 6 people just like standing around talking, and like
Yeah.
one person working like the front window in a line of like 15 people. And they weren't even being quiet. They're clearly just like talking about, I don't remember what it was now, but like just casual talking. It was like, oh, come on, can't you guys come help so this goes faster?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, civil service kind of jobs seem a bit looser. Also, banks seem like they'd be pretty like, okay, it's time to go home because I mean they're very strict about when they close and the
Yeah,
weekends and
that's
all that stuff.
they close before you'll ever get out of work.
Yeah, you have to take like half a day off just to go to the stupid bank.
Like it's true, and it's infuriating because you'd think like, oh, they probably close at 5. Like, nah, they close at like 4 or 3:30.
Yeah, yeah, and they're not like a lot of times in the U.S. at least like many banks will be open like half the day on a Saturday or something, right?
Yeah,
So,
never.
but nope, 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 nope,
And you might
nope.
think like, oh, as long as I'm in the building before they close. Like, no, when they close, they're closed. Your business has to be done by then.
So I hope at the very least that means for the employees that they get to go home pretty early. So hopefully.
I hope so too. They're probably like, okay, now we're closed. Now for our 6 hour of closed work.
Now the real work starts.
No one gets home until 11.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, there's some truth to it, but it's also, not necessarily completely true. Anyway,
Just
what's
going
next?
on
Yeah,
banks, my
yeah.
weirdest anecdote ever. I don't know if they still do this because I've heard they've improved things,
Mhm.
but when I lived in Osaka like 15 years ago, they would. So I live next to a 24-hour bank post office hybrid because Yucho is like the biggest bank, which is also owned by the post office. Or
Right.
I guess the other way around. Anyway, on weekends, the post office section would be open, but the bank would be closed
Yeah.
because I don't know why. And they would turn off the ATMs. So the
Yeah.
building is open and on, and there's people working in there, but all the ATMs are off and shuttered because the bank
Oh,
hours are closed.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, ATMs close in Japan. Yep. That's another annoying thing. Ugh.
Like I got used to that, but it was like literally you people are in the building working. Why is this machine closed? It
Yeah,
doesn't need
that's
time off.
extra frustrating. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Ah, all right.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah. What's up? What's
next
next?
one. Is it true that Japanese people can't handle much alcohol?
Okay. Neither of
Obviously,
us
that's why no one drinks here.
neither of us drink alcohol, so I mean, from that perspective, I mean, maybe what we can say is limited. But okay, so first of all, both of us probably have been, well, I know I have been. Ryan, I assume you probably have been to various kind of parties, maybe with coworkers or friends and things like at
Yes.
izakaya, stuff like that, right? We've seen also the aftermath, like if you take a late night train in Osaka or Tokyo, plenty of people drink plenty.
Yeah, I would say at least compared to America, I think Japan as a culture drinks substantially more.
I don't know, but it's certainly more visible in the cities maybe because of public
Alcohol
transportation. But
alcohol's
I
also
don't.
served more places because
Yes.
like I know recently they started selling alcohol in like movie theaters in the US, but Japan's like always been doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And like all you can drink, like, you go to like an all you can eat buffet or something or a karaoke, you pay like 3,000 yen, I don't know, whatever it is, depending on the place. And you can drink as many, beers as you want and, or whatever drinks they have. Now, I think sometimes the drinks might be a little watered down, but nevertheless, like, you don't really see that in the US. Like I can't remember, seeing like all you can drink beer or whatever, like, cause I get the impression that people would overdo it and there's not much of a profit margin there. So, but that's quite common in Japan. So there's plenty of drinking going on. But what I will add though is that genetically speaking, there is a higher tendency for maybe not just Japanese people, but larger like East Asian people to have I can't remember what the exact term is called, but basically like an allergy to I think it's alcohol intolerance. I think they have some enzyme or lack some enzyme that makes it impossible for them to metabolize alcohol like other people would, and so they feel sick and bad. And so I think statistically, yes, there is a higher percentage of people from East Asia that have this like genetic condition or thing difference. And so
thing difference. Do
thing
you have a
difference.
thing difference?
I am not a medical doctor.
I want to go to a restaurant. Like, oh, do you have any thing differences that we should know about before we make your food?
Here's my card proving my thing difference.
This needs to be on your next shirt.
Yeah, thing difference. So there's an element of truth to this, but certainly that does not mean that Japanese people on the whole don't drink or are particularly bad at drinking, because there's some people that can drink your butt off and they'll win you. They'll drink you under the table, and they'll be pretty damn like okay. They won't be like tipsy or visibly tipsy. So yeah, you get the gamut, but plenty of drinking goes on in Japan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't drink, so I can't comment more.
Yes. Yeah. So what's up next?
Oh, I guess we could also put out, like, I don't think I've ever seen an alcohol vending machine in the West, but those are pretty common here.
Yep. Pretty common. Yeah. Not at all rare. And again, like you rarely, I don't know, like sadly, it's these kinds of things where like you hear stories about vending machines getting like vandalized, whatever, in the US and all that stuff, but it's reasonably rare. It's so rare in Japan that kind of thing makes the national news.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one like in a cage like they do in the West.
Yeah. Like, come on, like people, we have to put vending machines in cages. That's so sad. Anyway, no, I've never seen one in Japan. So, but moving on.
Okay. Is it true that all Japanese people can read and speak Chinese?
No.
I'm going to be honest, I've never heard anyone really. Okay, I guess I sort of had. I won't mention a name because this person doesn't come off very smart in my example.
Mm-hmm.
But I did once meet someone who knew I lived in Japan and kept like showing me pictures of their friends traveling to other Asian countries, like Taiwan, and like, oh, can you read that? I'm like, no, I can read Japanese. Oh, my cousin like went to Thailand last year. Can you speak that? No, that's not Japanese. Oh, I went to this Vietnamese nail salon the other day. Can you understand what they're saying? No, that's not Japanese.
Yeah, I mean,
outside that one example, though, I think most people understand. Even if they personally can't tell the difference between Japanese and Chinese, they usually at least are aware they're different languages.
Yeah, I've taught Japanese in the U.S. and I've had people say like, so do you understand Chinese? Right? Like, there's certainly people that don't quite comprehend that it's different, two different languages and cultures, and yeah. Now,
in case you're unaware, Japanese and Chinese are extremely different languages. To the extent that English is more similar to Chinese than Japanese is to Chinese.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, Japanese is not like in terms of the language itself, not related to Chinese.
Not at all.
Did they take a bunch of words and did they take kanji? Yeah, yes. There's a lot of Chinese that or things that started in Chinese that ended up in Japanese, but that was much later, right? Like the language is already there. They just kind of
the language is already like 1,000 years old.
Yeah. Like it's like how there's a bunch of French in English and there's a bunch of other languages in English because they just stuck it in, right?
But even the kanji they took, it's not pronounced the same, and frequently the meaning is different.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like kind of similar. Like in one language it means school, and in another language it means like learn.
Yeah.
There are some where it's like exactly the same, but I think they're very simple things like sun and moon or whatever. Most of them are fairly different in meaning, even.
Yeah, like my impression is that some Japanese, especially if they've studied a little bit of Chinese, like they can kind of piece things together. But for the most part, it's like not really, and they definitely can't speak it or like
they can
understand it.
If they see like a street sign advertising or like a sign on the street advertising a store, they can maybe have a 50% chance to guess what that store sells. They cannot speak it or understand it if they hear it at all.
What and then we brought this up in our annoying things about Japan episode, but names.
Yeah.
Like
I cannot discuss anything about China with people in Japan.
like Chinese names are read with the Japanese pronunciation, oftentimes in Japanese media, and they just end up that's how you do it in Japan. And so like it doesn't sound like the original Chinese. Like so I think you could say that the English pronunciation is often in a way more similar to the Chinese than the Japanese pronunciation.
Oh, much more. English loses the tone, but it keeps the general spirit of the sound. Japanese is just like a completely unrelated word.
Yeah. So I mean that's just utterly confusing, and we talked about why that can be confusing. But yeah, so definitely if you think like maybe learning Japanese might help you a little bit with Chinese in terms of like generally getting a feel for the kanji and that kind of stuff, but beyond that, no, not that's it. Yeah.
Also got to point out, like in Chinese, there's simplified and traditional.
Yeah.
And Japan uses kind of a hybrid of both.
Yeah. And
a lot of people think Japan uses the traditional ones, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know the history of how Japan got the kanji it has in the modern day, but it has
I don't
some overlap with traditional and some overlap with simplified.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, sometimes when I see Chinese, I'm like, oh, I know that one. I've never seen this. I think
the really famous one is tegami, which in Japanese means like a letter, like to write a letter. In Chinese means toilet paper.
Yeah, I've heard that one. It's pretty funny. I mean, and I'm sure there's other weird ones like that too.
I wanted to include this one because I used to teach when I did Eikai with like an elderly man who would claim that he could read Chinese no problem at all, and he had so much confidence because he'd never actually been to China. I think he just assumed it was all the same.
Yeah.
Because he would tell me things like, I'm pretty sure that's not true.
It's like, I know kanji. Like, I'm good. Just read the kanji.
Like, you can do very basic communication with like the simple kanji, but you can't like read them. You can't even read like a full street sign, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, all right. What's up next?
Okay, next is the one I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Is it true that Japanese people eat food every day?
Wait, eat food every day?
Yeah. Eat Japanese food every day.
All right. So okay, eat Japanese food every day. All right.
And I want to just hopefully
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Hopefully you've heard our article talking about the difference of washoku
and
episode, of which there is no difference.
Yeah, yoshoku and washoku. Yeah.
Because the person who wrote this article said, like, no, there's globalization. People eat a variety of foods, and we're here to tell you, like, no, they eat Japanese food every day.
Yeah. All right. So let's break this down a little bit. So, yoshoku, right, is Western-inspired Japanese food.
Yes, but it is still Japanese food.
Yeah,
Japanese people
Japanese
will argue
creation.
with you that it's not, but it is.
Yeah. Like, yes, they might use some ingredients that came from the West and they have a general Western vibe to them, but it's still original Japanese creations that you cannot find in the US or I don't know, the UK or et cetera, unless you go to a Japanese restaurant.
Yeah.
So if we go by that definition of Japanese food, right, which I think is a pretty reasonable definition of Japanese food, like anything created in Japan. Yeah. Then, most Japanese people do eat mostly Japanese food every day.
Yeah, it's not entirely, because if you search, you can find restaurants that have like imported stuff, or not imported, but like cook foreign food. And there are specialty shops where you can get imported things, but I feel like for the average Japanese person, that's like a rare treat of maybe like once a month-ish.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly, it's just washoku, which is the food people believe to be Japanese, or yoshoku, which is the food they think is not Japanese, but is still Japanese for 95% of meals. Yeah,
and then, of course, there's McDonald's, which and that kind of thing, which is I think purely Western. Like,
the menu is the same there. Well, actually, it's not the same. Japanese McDonald's has a better menu.
Yeah, they do have other items, but
that's interesting though. So a McDonald's special item that's only available in Japan, is that Japanese food?
Well,
I think
yoshoku.
By our definition, it has to be.
Yeah, that's yoshoku.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe the fries aren't yoshoku, but the burger itself or something like that. That is.
Yeah. So when they had like a tsukimi baga or whatever, that's that's yoshoku. That's not actual Western McDonald's food. Okay, even half McDonald's is Japanese then.
Yeah, and the Coke with sushi in it, that's also yoshoku.
Historically, it actually came from China, though.
So okay, so yeah, you do get some like the Western, like like for lack of a better term, like authentic stuff that came out of imported. But
yeah, you can find like a Mexican restaurant or something.
Yeah, steakhouse or whatever, blah blah blah. Now, but now if we want, I think the intention, okay, the intention of this original like section in the article was to say, do they eat nothing but miso soup, like fish, pickled ginger, and I don't know, like beets. No, beets are Russian. Daikon. I was thinking radish. Sorry, I was thinking radish.
Different.
They're both like root vegetables. Okay, so forgive me. Not beets. Borscht. Do they eat borscht every day?
Yeah, the most Japanese food of all, borscht.
Yeah. No. So okay, you get what I mean, right? Do they eat what would be classically like considered Japanese food every day? No. There's a variety of food. Like we were saying, there's yoshoku. There's also the more authentic Western-ish food, or even authentic Greek. Like if you search in the big cities, you can find some pretty good restaurants that serve authentic whatever food. And there's tons of this fusion stuff as well. So Japanese people eat a variety of stuff. Done.
Yes,
closed,
there is a variety.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the history, I do think the majority is stuff that originated in Japan.
Yeah. Exactly. And that, again, just to be perfectly explicit, we are also including yoshoku in this.
Yeah, yoshoku is just a different kind of washoku.
Like tonkatsu, katsudon, tempura.
Karage,
like
yeah.
We're throwing all this in there because this is all stuff that like
Karage.
influenced by the West, but really came to its own, created in Japan. So case closed.
Our next one is, are all Japanese people good with their hands?
They're all like amazing close-up magic magicians.
I will say every Japanese person I've met, at least over the age of 4, is perfectly capable of like using a pen and paper.
I was not expecting that.
They can tie their shoes too.
Yeah, one hand.
Generally,
sometimes.
they can like pick up things and like manipulate doorknobs.
Yeah. I've seen more than a few Japanese people pick their noses. All right.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And their ears and all kinds of holes. Like
they're good at hole manipulation.
Goodness, hole manipulation. That's another good T-shirt. Goodness, no. Moving on. So, this was a weird one. Like, so again, this is from this
I've
article,
never heard this before.
Live Japan. The article points out like shokunin, which are like craftspeople, and obviously, like any craftsperson is gonna be good with their hands if they're making stuff, like to some extent, right? Like they're gonna be good at making these things, which generally you would use your hands to make. And so yeah, Japan has this reputation of having many like craftspeople that are very good at making, I don't know, they've had like 10 generations in their family making like geta sandals or whatever, right? Like this happens. It just is. It's true. But does this extend to like Japanese people in general being good with their hands and being able to like create these things that are finely like detailed and all this stuff? Like I didn't have that impression.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. Like I think so.
I remember the best example I can think of is back at University of Hawaii when we used to have our Japanese Culture Day. Mm-hmm. One of the little booths would be teaching about origami, and we had an American student training our Japanese students in how to do it to show it to the other people.
Yeah. That definitely happens. Yeah.
I mentioned this before. The closest thing I can think of, not good with their hands, but I've often heard people say like our Japanese people just like good at something.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember what episode it was, but I mentioned that I play like competitive fighting games, and Japan has the reputation for being like really good. Mm-hmm. And I'll just repeat what I said then. Like, I think in Japan, the number of like people who approach a hobby casually is lower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you compare like hardcore Japanese person to hardcore other country, I don't think they stand out any. They're just the same.
Yeah. Like,
I don't even think there's a higher number of hardcore. I think it's more like there's just a lower number of casual.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like I think one of the top Dance Dance Revolution guys is American. One of there's plenty of top like competitive gaming, competitive fighting game people that are not in Japan. Like there's some people that are quite well known in Japan, but it's still like I don't know if statistically it's really all that different. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. I guess it's an extension of this whole shokunin craftsperson thing that all Japanese people, but I've never really heard this that like all Japanese people are good with their hands. So I don't know, just wanted to point that one out because we didn't quite,
unless it's whole manipulation, then they're like top tier.
They're amazing. They're whole manipulation. Okay, last one. This is the one that we thought of, right?
Just to be clear, whole manipulation simply means picking your nose or ears or something.
Yeah. If you're thinking anything else, I mean,
yeah, I don't know why you would infer that. That's
dirty.
Not implied at all.
It's
explicitly not implied.
Yeah, you dirty person. Why would you think anything else? All right, last one.
Our last one is all Japanese TV weird?
Yeah, again, this is not one that was in the article. If you want to read what else was in the article, I'll include the link so you can go check that out there. There are a few other ones that I think are certainly accurate and worth pointing out that they're not true. But there's a misconception, I think, that Japanese TV is crazy and wacky and weird and over the top and like Takeshi's Castle all the time, 100%. It's like, no, as we said earlier. Yeah.
Most Japanese TV is much more boring than Western TV.
Yeah, like generally speaking, like I think big anime series, like anime seems to get quite a bit of money, but like most like live action, for example, like dramas, like scripted 1 hour like fictional shows, the budget tends to be significantly less, a lot more formulaic. You don't get as much of the kind of experimentation that I see nowadays with, or that we've seen for the past, I don't know, like 10 years on like streaming platforms and cable on Western TV, on American TV, so because I think that they have to appeal to a wide audience. They have to create content that's going to appeal from like the high school people to the 90-year-old like Obachan, right? And so when you have to create something like that that has a much wider appeal, you end up with a lot more generic stuff, right? So, and also, there's just less money to be thrown around. I mean, we're talking about comparing like, some of the biggest like production companies in the world to something that is, marketing to just within the country, right? Mostly. So
I know if you look online, you can find weird game show clips and all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
I think those were either exclusively made kind of as a joke to put, I don't know, because I haven't seen all of them, but because they do exist and you can find them, but they're definitely not the norm. And I think some of them never aired on normal TV and were just like put on the internet or were like on some weird cable channel at like 2 a.m. or something.
Yes. So all points there that yes are true. So there's some stuff that was either for some online streaming service or some BS, which is broadcast satellite. It's not like the other BS that we know. Basically cable or some pay service, right? That they can get more risque. A lot of times their stuff is still quite low budget, but or extra low budget because they're not even like the mass market. They're just very niche and only have a small viewer base, but they can get away with really like risque stuff, crazy stuff sometimes. Now there's also like back in the 80s, especially like back in bubble era Japan, that is when they were producing stuff like Takeshi's Castle, which got turned into, I think it's called MXC in the US, right? Which is like overdubbed, ridiculous stunts, like just silly stuff. That was like back when Japanese TV was, or Japan in general, go listen to our bubble era episode, but Japan in general was like throwing money everywhere. They were sending people like to go do reports in other countries and doing crazy stuff because they could just, throw money at people. But even then, I suspect that those were only like a select group of shows. Most Japanese people in the 80s was probably not that crazy. So nowadays, you still do get like some kind of pranky shows. They'll do some silly prank on a celebrity I highly suspect that 90% of those, if not more, is already like everybody's in on the joke. Like the celebrity knows that something's going to happen to them and they just react in some super over the top way. Some person like jumps out of the ceiling at them or something, right? I highly doubt that, they're really doing these pranks like legitimately, because there's some legalities there that I think, could
Japan
come into
is,
question.
I think, much more conservative with like legality and stuff than the West.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are, anytime you see something that looks like it could be dangerous, it's probably not real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the saddest thing about this is that these shows don't say that it's not real. There's no disclaimer saying that it's not real or that the celebrity knew ahead of time. And so it's all staged, and they don't reveal that it was staged. And that's really, really unfortunate. But this happens. When I was living in Japan, I would come across these shows, and yeah, they're funny, and you see these crazy reactions, and they can be funny. But I would always watch them thinking like, yeah, this probably is totally fake. But as we said earlier, most Japanese TV is quite mundane, so it's really not all that crazy. It's just like this is what happens online, right? The craziest stuff rises, and it's what gets the most clicks, what gets the most retweets, what gets the most likes, and that is what people are going to say or see. And so then people get this, incorrect perception of what Japanese TV and Japanese society is.
Yeah, generally the stuff that people see as being crazy and weird and think is the norm is something the average Japanese person has no clue even exists.
Yeah, or also thinks is crazy, and
yeah, they also think it's crazy and weird.
Yeah, they enjoy it because it's crazy, and they're in on the joke. They know that they're not watching that, because they're not watching that and thinking that their entire country is like that, right?
Yeah, like wow, we sure are weird here.
Yeah. So, again, if you watch an American TV show that does some crazy stuff, you don't immediately assume that, all of the US is like that. Although some people probably do, but it's not.
I don't know. I saw SpongeBob, so now I assume the US is full of sea creatures who have the ability to light fires underwater.
Look, I live in a pineapple, all right? And
is it under the sea? I thought yours was just near the sea.
Look, I can't swim, so I made the choice for my own safety to be by the sea. Okay. But if I could swim, I'd be under the sea. So yeah, so that's our take on stereotypes. Stereotypes by definition are usually not true. Right? I mean, that's kind of implied, I think, in the term stereotype. So
yeah, but I think it's good we end on that note, because I've met way too many people like, oh, all stereotypes are based on some element of truth, but no, they're not. Like,
no.
I feel like every once in a while, if you search hard enough, you can find one that's kind of sort of based on a misunderstanding, but most of them are just completely baseless.
No, I mean, what you can do is you can find some interpretation that you can argue is based on some element of reality, but you can do that for almost anything.
Yeah, like if you really, really stretch reality, maybe, but like no.
No. So there are truths in this world, and I think it's safe to say that stereotypes usually are, I think by definition are not true. Now, can we learn something about the culture or something by dissecting it and trying to figure out what's going on? Yeah, I think so. But if somebody says this is a stereotype, I think it's safe to assume it's not true.
So, exactly.
Because I think usually a stereotype, you would go like, all blah, 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 do blah, 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 right? It's like, no, not all blah, 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 do blah, blah, blah.
It is true that all Japanese people eat food every day.
Yeah. And again, McDonald's in Japan, sushi and the Coke.
Well, I just said eat food, not Japanese food this time.
No, I don't know. That's true. They do eat. Yeah, they do. That's
usually
a stereotype.
More than once.
Yeah, usually more than once, exactly. And at least one guy eats sushi every day.
At least my old friend, he's probably out there somewhere still eating sushi every day.
Yeah, I hope he's listening, eating sushi right now. He's like, yep.
That would be the greatest moment ever.
Still good.
Koji, if you're listening, send me an email.
Yeah. After I'm done with my sushi, hang on.
I haven't talked to you in like 10 years, but I want to catch up.
Hang on, I'm eating sushi. Okay, we'll close out. If you have any questions or comments, whatever, you can send them over to ichimon@japankyo.com. We love getting questions. We certainly do reader suggested questions every once in a while. So send them over if you have them. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So, and don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe and do all that stuff. We definitely appreciate it. All right. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
See you next time.